The desert wind carried the scent of sand and gunpowder as Marine Corporal Sarah Martinez carefully disassembled her M40A6 sniper rifle for the third time that morning. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who had performed this ritual thousands of times, each component handled with the reverence of a craftsman caring for their most precious tool. The weapon that had become an extension of her being lay spread across the weathered tarp in her makeshift maintenance area, every piece gleaming despite the harsh conditions of forward operating base Thunder in Afghanistan. Sarah had always been different from other children growing up in the small town of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. While her classmates played video games or watched television, she spent hours in her grandfather's workshop, learning to take apart and rebuild everything from lawnmowers to hunting rifles. Her grandfather, a Korean War veteran named Bill Martinez, recognized something special in his granddaughter's steady hands and sharp eyes. He taught her to shoot when she was 12, starting with a .22 caliber rifle in the backyard, progressing to larger calibers as her skills developed. By age 16, Sarah could consistently hit targets at distances that amazed even the most experienced hunters in their rural community. Her high school shooting team coach called her a natural, but Sarah knew it was more than natural talent. She understood the science behind ballistics, the way wind speed and direction affected bullet trajectory, how temperature and humidity could change a shot's path. She studied physics and mathematics with the same intensity she brought to the shooting range, knowing that precision shooting was as much about mental calculation as physical skill. The decision to join the Marine Corps came naturally after high school graduation. While her parents hoped she would attend college and pursue a more traditional career, Sarah felt called to serve her country. The military offered her the chance to develop her shooting skills to their highest potential while making a meaningful contribution to something larger than herself. Boot camp at Parris Island was challenging, but Sarah thrived under the discipline and structure. Her drill instructors quickly noticed her exceptional marksmanship abilities and recommended her for advanced sniper training. Scout Sniper School at Camp Pendleton was unlike anything Sarah had experienced. The physical demands were brutal, with endless hours of crawling through mud and sand while carrying heavy equipment. The mental challenges were equally intense, requiring students to calculate complex mathematical equations while under extreme stress. Many of her classmates struggled with the psychological aspects of the training, learning to kill with cold precision from great distances. For Sarah, it felt like coming home. Her instructors were impressed by her natural abilities, but they pushed her harder than any other student. Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez, a veteran of 3 combat deployments, became her mentor. He taught her advanced techniques that went beyond the standard curriculum, sharing lessons learned through years of combat experience. Under his guidance, Sarah learned to read environmental conditions like a meteorologist, to control her breathing and heartbeat like a meditation master, and to calculate trajectories in her head faster than most people could use a calculator. The first time Sarah fired her rifle in combat, she was positioned on a rooftop in Helmand Province, providing overwatch for a patrol that had become pinned down by enemy fire. Through her scope, she could see 3 insurgents approximately 800 meters away, using a stone wall as cover while they fired automatic weapons at the exposed Marines below. Her spotter, Lance Corporal Danny Kim, whispered range and wind calculations into her ear, but Sarah had already processed the information herself. The first shot took the enemy machine gunner in the chest, dropping him instantly. The second insurgent tried to flee, but Sarah's follow-up shot found him before he could take 3 steps. The third enemy fighter attempted to surrender, throwing down his weapon and raising his hands. Sarah held her fire, maintaining her sight picture while the patrol moved in to secure the area. It was a clean engagement, executed with textbook precision, but Sarah found herself shaking slightly as the adrenaline wore off. Over the following months, Sarah's reputation grew throughout the Marine units operating in Afghanistan. Word spread about the young female sniper who could consistently hit targets at extreme distances, often in conditions that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Her kill count began to climb, each confirmed elimination adding to a record that was becoming legendary among the special operations community. The weapons maintenance ritual that had become so important to Sarah served multiple purposes beyond simple equipment care. The methodical process of cleaning and inspecting each component helped calm her mind after difficult missions. It was a form of meditation that allowed her to process the psychological weight of her actions while ensuring her weapon would function flawlessly when needed. Every spring, every screw, every piece of metal was examined with microscopic attention to detail. Sarah's rifle was more than just a tool, it was a carefully customized precision instrument that reflected years of refinement and modification. The stock had been adjusted to fit her body perfectly, the trigger modified to break cleanly at exactly 2 pounds of pressure. The scope, a high-end Nightforce model, had been personally zeroed by Sarah through hundreds of rounds of practice ammunition. Even the bipod had been adjusted to accommodate her preferred shooting position and style. Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, the base commander, often stopped by the armory where Sarah performed her maintenance routine. He was fascinated by her methodical approach and impressed by her growing reputation among the forward operating bases scattered throughout the region. Reports filtered back regularly about impossible shots taken at extreme distances, often in adverse weather conditions that would force most snipers to hold their fire. One particular incident had become the subject of discussion throughout the military intelligence community. Sarah had been positioned to provide overwatch for a high-value target operation when enemy forces launched a counterattack. From her concealed position nearly 2 kilometers away, she had engaged multiple targets with devastating effectiveness, allowing the assault team to complete their mission without casualties. The range of her shots and the accuracy under pressure had caught the attention of senior commanders throughout the theater of operations. Sarah's spotter, Danny Kim, had become more than just a professional partner. The two Marines had developed the kind of trust and communication that only comes from shared danger and mutual respect. Danny understood Sarah's shooting style better than anyone, able to provide wind and range corrections almost before she needed them. Their partnership had been tested in numerous firefights, and they had never failed to complete their mission successfully. The psychological toll of being a sniper was something that Sarah struggled with privately. Unlike other combat roles where the enemy was often faceless and distant, her work required her to study her targets through high-powered optics, to see their faces clearly before taking their lives. She had developed coping mechanisms, reminding herself that each shot potentially saved the lives of fellow Marines who would otherwise face those same enemies in closer, more dangerous encounters. Sleep often came fitfully for Sarah, filled with dreams that mixed memories of home with images from the battlefield. She wrote letters to her grandfather regularly, though she could never fully explain the realities of her combat experience. His responses were filled with pride and encouragement, along with technical advice about rifle maintenance and shooting techniques that he continued to research and share with her. The base chaplain, Navy Lieutenant David Chen, had noticed Sarah's quiet demeanor during the religious services she occasionally attended. He made himself available to talk with any of the Marines struggling with the moral complexities of warfare, but Sarah had never sought him out for counseling. She processed her experiences internally, through her weapons maintenance routines and the physical discipline of staying in peak condition. Sarah's physical fitness was as legendary as her shooting skills. She ran 5 miles every morning before dawn, regardless of the temperature or weather conditions. Her strength training focused on functional movements that would improve her ability to carry heavy equipment over long distances and maintain stability while shooting from uncomfortable positions. Other Marines often joined her workouts, drawn by her quiet leadership and obvious dedication to excellence. The armory where Sarah maintained her equipment had become an unofficial gathering place for the base's designated marksmen and machine gunners. They would stop by to watch her work, hoping to learn techniques they could apply to their own weapons. Sarah was generous with her knowledge, sharing tips about barrel cleaning, scope adjustment, and ammunition selection. Her willingness to help others improve their skills had earned her respect throughout the unit. As Sarah reassembled her rifle that morning, she reflected on how much her life had changed since leaving Iowa. The girl who had learned to shoot tin cans in her grandfather's backyard had become one of the most effective snipers in the Marine Corps. Her confirmed kill count had reached numbers that placed her among the most successful marksmen in military history, though she rarely thought about the statistics. Each engagement was simply another mission to be completed with maximum precision and minimum risk to friendly forces. The maintenance ritual complete, Sarah stored her weapon in its protective case and prepared for the day's briefing. Intelligence reports suggested increased enemy activity in their area of operations, which likely meant another mission was imminent. She gathered her gear methodically, each piece of equipment checked and rechecked according to the procedures that had become second nature through months of combat deployment. The other Marines in her unit had learned to read Sarah's pre-mission routine like a barometer of the coming action. When she moved with particular deliberation and focus, they knew the upcoming operation would be challenging. Her calm confidence had become a source of reassurance for the younger Marines, who looked to her as an example of professional competence under pressure. As she walked toward the operations center for the morning briefing, Sarah had no way of knowing that her growing reputation had reached the highest levels of the special operations community. Reports of her exceptional marksmanship and rising kill count had traveled far beyond her forward operating base, catching the attention of commanders who specialized in the most difficult and dangerous missions the military had to offer. The morning briefing revealed details of the most challenging mission Sarah had yet encountered. Intelligence sources had located a high-value target compound deep in Taliban-controlled territory, requiring a complex operation involving multiple units and precise timing. The mission commander, Major Patricia Hendricks, spread detailed satellite imagery across the conference table while the assembled Marines studied the terrain features and potential approach routes. Sarah found herself assigned to an overwatch position approximately 3 kilometers from the target compound, a distance that would test even her exceptional abilities. The position offered excellent fields of fire but would require a treacherous night movement through enemy territory to reach before dawn. Her mission was to provide precision fire support for the assault team while also covering their withdrawal route should the operation encounter unexpected resistance. The target compound sat in a valley surrounded by rocky hills that provided natural defensive positions for enemy forces. Intelligence reports suggested the presence of several high-ranking Taliban commanders along with foreign fighters who had recently arrived from Pakistan. The building itself was a traditional Afghan compound with thick walls and multiple courtyards, designed to provide protection against both the elements and hostile forces. Preparation for the mission required Sarah to study every detail of the terrain through high-resolution photographs and topographical maps. She memorized distances to various landmarks, calculated potential shooting angles, and identified alternate positions in case her primary location became compromised. The complexity of the operation demanded the kind of meticulous planning that separated successful snipers from those who did not return from their missions. Danny Kim worked alongside Sarah during the preparation phase, his role as spotter requiring him to understand the mission parameters as thoroughly as she did. Together they reviewed meteorological forecasts, studied recent enemy activity patterns, and coordinated with the assault team leaders to ensure seamless communication during the operation. The partnership that had developed between them over months of combat had evolved into something approaching telepathy. The insertion began at midnight, with Sarah and Danny moving silently through the darkness toward their designated position. The route took them through a series of dried creek beds and rocky outcroppings that provided concealment from enemy observation posts. Both Marines carried full combat loads plus additional ammunition and water for what could become an extended engagement. Moving through hostile territory at night required skills that went far beyond marksmanship. Sarah had learned to navigate using only a compass and map, to move silently across different types of terrain, and to remain motionless for hours while maintaining constant alertness. The weight of her equipment, over 60 pounds including rifle, ammunition, and survival gear, made the movement physically demanding despite her excellent conditioning. The overwatch position was reached 2 hours before dawn, giving Sarah time to establish a proper hide site and range the various landmarks throughout the valley. Her shooting position was carefully constructed using natural materials to break up her outline while providing a stable platform for precision shooting. Danny established his observation post slightly behind and to the left, positioning his spotting scope to cover areas that Sarah could not observe through her rifle scope. As the sun rose over the mountains, Sarah began her systematic observation of the target compound through her rifle scope. The magnification allowed her to study the daily routines of the people living and working in the buildings below. She counted at least 15 military-age males moving around the compound, several carrying automatic weapons and displaying the tactical awareness of experienced fighters. The assault team's approach began at dawn, with multiple elements moving to surround the compound while Sarah maintained overwatch from her elevated position. Radio communications were kept to whispers and coded phrases to minimize the chance of enemy interception. Sarah's role was to engage any threats that emerged from the compound while the assault team moved into position for the final attack. Through her scope, Sarah watched as the first enemy sentry appeared on the compound's flat rooftop, carrying a radio and what appeared to be a pair of binoculars. The range to target was 2,847 meters according to her laser rangefinder, a distance that required precise calculation of bullet drop and wind compensation. She made minute adjustments to her scope's elevation and windage settings while controlling her breathing and heart rate. The shot, when it came, was executed with the mechanical precision that had become Sarah's trademark. The enemy sentry dropped instantly, his radio and binoculars clattering across the rooftop as his body fell behind the low wall that surrounded the building's edge. The suppressed rifle's report was barely audible at the assault team's position, maintaining the element of surprise that was crucial to the mission's success. Additional targets began appearing as the compound's defenders responded to the assault team's movement. Sarah engaged each threat with calm efficiency, her shots eliminating enemy fighters who were attempting to establish defensive positions or escape through the compound's rear entrance. The extreme range of her shooting position made counterfire impossible, allowing her to engage targets without fear of immediate retaliation. Danny Kim's role as spotter became crucial as the engagement intensified. He tracked multiple moving targets while providing Sarah with continuous updates on wind conditions and range adjustments. His ability to spot the fall of shots and provide immediate corrections allowed Sarah to engage targets rapidly while maintaining first-round hit probability. Their communication had been refined through months of practice into a system of hand signals and whispered phrases that conveyed complex information instantly. The assault team's movement into the compound triggered increased resistance from the defenders. Sarah could see muzzle flashes from automatic weapons firing from windows and doorways throughout the buildings. Her role shifted from engaging specific threats to providing covering fire for the Marines who were now fighting at close quarters inside the compound walls. One particularly challenging shot presented itself when an enemy fighter emerged from a building carrying a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. The man was moving quickly toward a position where he could engage the assault team's vehicles, which were positioned outside the compound walls. Sarah's shot at 3,100 meters caught the fighter in mid-stride, the impact spinning him around and sending the RPG launcher flying across the courtyard. The precision required for such extreme range shooting went far beyond simple marksmanship. Sarah had to account for the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation, calculate the exact trajectory of her bullet over a flight time that exceeded 4 seconds, and compensate for wind conditions that could vary significantly between her position and the target. The mathematical complexity of such shots would have challenged a computer, but Sarah processed the calculations instinctively through years of training and experience. As the firefight continued, Sarah's ammunition expenditure climbed steadily. Each shot was carefully considered and precisely executed, but the intensity of the combat required her to engage multiple targets in rapid succession. Her ammunition loadout included both standard ball rounds for personnel targets and armor-piercing ammunition for use against hardened positions or lightly armored vehicles. The psychological pressure of providing overwatch for fellow Marines engaged in close combat added another layer of complexity to Sarah's mission. She could hear the intensity of the firefight through her radio earpiece, listening to the urgent communications of Marines fighting for their lives while she remained relatively safe in her concealed position. The responsibility of providing accurate fire support weighed heavily on her, knowing that any missed shot could result in casualties among her fellow Marines. The turning point in the battle came when Sarah identified the enemy commander attempting to coordinate the defense from a protected position inside the compound. The man was using a radio to direct fighters to specific defensive positions, his tactical knowledge evident in the organized resistance the assault team was encountering. The shot required Sarah to wait patiently for the commander to expose himself sufficiently for a clean hit. When the opportunity presented itself, Sarah's shot traveled over 3 kilometers to find its target with devastating precision. The enemy commander's death created immediate confusion among the defenders, disrupting their coordinated resistance and allowing the assault team to press their attack more effectively. The psychological impact of losing their leader was as important as the tactical advantage gained by eliminating a key decision-maker. The operation concluded successfully with the capture of several high-value targets and the recovery of significant intelligence materials. Sarah's contribution to the mission's success was acknowledged by the assault team commander, who credited her precision fire support with preventing numerous American casualties. Her confirmed kills during the operation brought her total count to numbers that were beginning to attract attention from the highest levels of military command. The movement back to base after the mission required the same careful navigation and noise discipline that had marked their insertion. Sarah and Danny retraced their route through the mountainous terrain, carrying additional weight in the form of captured enemy equipment and intelligence materials. The physical demands of the return movement, combined with the mental exhaustion following hours of intense combat, tested both Marines' endurance and determination. Back at Forward Operating Base Thunder, Sarah resumed her familiar routine of weapons maintenance and equipment inspection. The rifle that had performed flawlessly throughout the mission was carefully cleaned and inspected for any signs of wear or damage. Each component was examined with the same meticulous attention to detail that had characterized her approach to marksmanship since her grandfather first taught her to shoot as a child. The mission debrief revealed the full scope of Sarah's contribution to the operation's success. Her 19 confirmed kills at extreme range had eliminated key threats and enabled the assault team to complete their objectives with minimal casualties. The precision of her shooting and the ranges involved had impressed even the most experienced special operations veterans who participated in the planning and execution of the mission. Word of Sarah's exceptional performance began spreading throughout the special operations community in Afghanistan. Reports of her growing kill count and unprecedented accuracy at extreme ranges reached commanders responsible for the most challenging and dangerous missions in the theater of operations. Her reputation was becoming legend among Marines, soldiers, and special operations forces throughout the region. The psychological toll of the mission was something Sarah processed privately through her established routines and personal discipline. The number of lives she had taken weighed on her conscience, balanced against the knowledge that her actions had saved the lives of fellow Americans. The moral complexity of her role as a sniper was something she had learned to accept as part of her service to her country and her responsibility to the Marines who depended on her skills. As she completed her post-mission maintenance routine, Sarah reflected on how far she had come from the small-town girl who had learned to shoot in her grandfather's backyard. The precision instrument in her hands had become an extension of her will, capable of reaching out across impossible distances to protect her fellow warriors and accomplish missions that others could not even attempt. The helicopter's rotors beat against the thin mountain air as Sarah gazed down at the rugged terrain of the Hindu Kush Mountains. This mission was different from anything she had undertaken before, requiring her to operate independently for an extended period while supporting a classified special operations mission deep in enemy territory. The insertion point was 40 kilometers from the nearest friendly base, in an area where Taliban and foreign fighter presence was estimated at several hundred combatants. Major General Robert Hayes, the commanding officer for special operations in the region, had personally requested Sarah for this mission after reviewing her service record and confirmed kill count. The briefing had taken place in a secure facility where Sarah learned she would be supporting a Navy SEAL team tasked with capturing or eliminating a high-value target responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. The target was identified as Khalil Rahman, a Pakistani national who had established a sophisticated network of bomb makers and foreign fighters operating from a fortified compound in the remote mountains. Intelligence sources indicated that Rahman possessed advanced technical knowledge and had been training local insurgents in the construction of improvised explosive devices that had caused numerous American casualties. Sarah's mission parameters were unlike anything she had previously encountered. She would be inserted 72 hours before the SEAL team's arrival, requiring her to establish multiple shooting positions and conduct detailed reconnaissance of the target area. The extended timeline would test her survival skills and mental resilience while operating alone in one of the most dangerous regions of Afghanistan. The insertion was conducted at night using a special operations helicopter that approached the landing zone using terrain-following flight patterns to avoid enemy radar detection. Sarah and Danny Kim were equipped with enough food, water, and ammunition to sustain themselves for a week if extraction was delayed. Their equipment load exceeded 80 pounds per person, including specialized long-range communication gear and additional survival equipment. The helicopter touched down for less than 30 seconds before lifting off again, leaving Sarah and Danny alone in the darkness of enemy territory. The silence that followed the aircraft's departure was profound, broken only by the distant sound of wind moving through the mountain passes. Both Marines immediately began moving toward their predetermined rally point, a concealed position that offered observation of multiple approach routes to the target compound. The first 24 hours were spent establishing a baseline understanding of enemy activity patterns in the area. Sarah observed regular patrols moving along predictable routes, documented the timing of guard changes at observation posts, and identified key terrain features that could influence the upcoming operation. The compound itself was larger than satellite imagery had suggested, with multiple buildings surrounded by defensive positions that had been improved over several months. Through her rifle scope, Sarah could observe the daily routines of the people living and working in the target compound. The level of security was impressive, with multiple guard posts maintaining overlapping fields of fire and roving patrols conducting random sweeps of the surrounding area. The defenders appeared well-trained and disciplined, displaying tactical awareness that suggested professional military experience. Danny Kim's role during the reconnaissance phase involved maintaining communication with higher headquarters while documenting enemy positions and activity patterns. His spotting scope allowed detailed observation of targets at ranges where Sarah's rifle scope would have been less effective. Together they created a comprehensive intelligence picture that would be crucial to the SEAL team's mission planning. The target compound's elevation at nearly 3,000 meters above sea level presented unique challenges for long-range shooting. The thin air would affect bullet trajectory differently than the lower elevations where Sarah had gained most of her combat experience. She spent considerable time calculating new ballistic solutions and adjusting her rifle scope to compensate for the changed atmospheric conditions. On the second day of observation, Sarah identified what appeared to be the target himself moving between buildings within the compound. Khalil Rahman was a tall, bearded man who carried himself with obvious authority, directing the activities of subordinates and inspecting defensive positions with professional competence. His presence confirmed the intelligence that had prompted this high-risk mission. The surrounding terrain offered several potential shooting positions, each with distinct advantages and limitations. Sarah spent hours moving between different locations, calculating ranges and angles while considering factors such as wind patterns and potential escape routes. The position she ultimately selected offered clear fields of fire to the compound at a range of 3,180 meters, well within her proven capabilities but challenging due to the mountain environment. Communication with the approaching SEAL team was maintained through encrypted burst transmissions that minimized the chance of enemy interception. Sarah provided detailed updates on enemy positions, activity patterns, and recommended approach routes based on her 3 days of continuous observation. Her intelligence proved invaluable to the SEAL team's final mission planning. The night before the assault, Sarah conducted final preparations of her equipment and shooting position. Her rifle was zeroed precisely for the mountain conditions, with ballistic calculations verified through practice shots at known ranges. Every detail of the upcoming engagement had been rehearsed mentally, from target identification to ammunition management during what could become an extended firefight. The SEAL team's insertion occurred before dawn on the fourth day, with 8 operators moving silently through the darkness toward their assault positions. Sarah maintained overwatch throughout their approach, ready to engage any enemy forces that might detect the team's movement. The coordination between her position and the assault force had been rehearsed through radio communications and written operation orders. Commander Marcus Thompson, the SEAL team leader, was a veteran of multiple deployments who understood the value of precision sniper support during high-risk operations. His team had worked with Marine snipers before, but never at the extreme ranges that Sarah's position required. The coordination protocols had been adapted to account for the extended flight time of bullets traveling over 3 kilometers to their targets. As dawn approached, Sarah observed increased activity within the compound as the defenders began their morning routines. Several fighters emerged from buildings to conduct perimeter checks, while others moved equipment and supplies between different areas of the facility. The intelligence she had gathered over the previous days allowed her to predict these patterns and position herself for maximum effectiveness. The assault began with the SEAL team's coordinated movement toward the compound's perimeter defenses. Sarah's first engagement came when an enemy sentry detected unusual movement and raised his rifle toward the approaching Americans. Her shot at 3,180 meters eliminated the threat before he could fire or raise an alarm, maintaining the element of surprise that was crucial to the mission's success. The complexity of supporting a SEAL assault differed significantly from Sarah's previous missions with Marine units. The Naval Special Operations team moved with different tactics and timing, requiring her to adapt her support techniques to their unique operational methods. Communication protocols were adjusted to account for the SEAL team's specific terminology and procedures. Rahman himself appeared in a doorway as the first explosions echoed through the compound. Sarah could see him clearly through her scope, but held her fire pending confirmation from the SEAL team commander that lethal force was authorized. The mission's primary objective was capture if possible, with elimination as a secondary option if the target attempted to escape or resist. The firefight that followed tested Sarah's skills in ways that previous engagements had not. The SEAL team's movement created a dynamic tactical situation where target identification became more challenging, requiring her to distinguish between friendly forces and enemy combatants at extreme range. Her role shifted constantly between providing covering fire and engaging specific threats as the battle evolved. One particularly challenging moment came when Rahman attempted to escape through the compound's rear entrance, carrying what appeared to be important documents or equipment. Sarah's shot at maximum range caught him in the leg, dropping him to the ground while preserving his life for potential interrogation. The precision required to wound rather than kill at such distance demonstrated the extraordinary level of skill she had developed. The engagement continued for nearly 2 hours as remaining defenders fought from prepared positions throughout the compound. Sarah's ammunition expenditure climbed steadily as she engaged multiple targets while providing continuous support for the SEAL team's assault. Her shooting position began receiving occasional return fire as enemy forces attempted to locate and neutralize the sniper who was causing such devastation. Danny Kim's role became crucial during the extended engagement as he tracked multiple targets and provided continuous updates on Sarah's ammunition consumption. His ability to spot the impact of shots and provide immediate corrections allowed Sarah to maintain her high hit probability despite the challenging conditions and extended duration of the firefight. The mission concluded successfully with Rahman's capture and the recovery of significant intelligence materials that would prove valuable in disrupting terrorist networks throughout the region. Sarah's contribution to the operation's success was acknowledged by Commander Thompson, who noted that her precision fire support had prevented multiple American casualties while enabling the capture of a high-value target. The extraction phase required Sarah and Danny to move to an alternate landing zone while carrying additional weight in the form of captured enemy equipment and intelligence materials. The movement through enemy territory in daylight hours added risk to an already dangerous mission, requiring constant vigilance and tactical awareness to avoid detection by remaining hostile forces. Back at the forward operating base, Sarah's mission debrief revealed the full scope of her contribution to the operation. Her 27 confirmed kills during the engagement had eliminated key threats and enabled the SEAL team to complete their objectives with minimal friendly casualties. The ranges involved and precision of her shooting impressed even the most experienced special operations veterans. The success of the mission and Sarah's exceptional performance began attracting attention from the highest levels of the military command structure. Reports of her growing kill count and unprecedented accuracy at extreme ranges reached Pentagon officials responsible for special operations planning and resource allocation. Her reputation was spreading far beyond the theater of operations in Afghanistan. Commander Thompson's after-action report specifically highlighted Sarah's professionalism and tactical effectiveness during the joint operation. His recommendation for recognition carried significant weight within the special operations community, where reputation was earned through proven performance under the most challenging conditions imaginable. The psychological impact of the extended mission required Sarah to process the experience through her established routines and personal discipline. The number of lives she had taken during the operation weighed on her conscience, balanced against the knowledge that her actions had protected fellow Americans and contributed to the broader mission of defeating terrorist networks. As she completed her post-mission maintenance routine, Sarah reflected on the evolution of her skills and responsibilities since joining the Marine Corps. The rifle that had performed flawlessly during the mission represented years of training and refinement, but also symbolized the weight of expectations that came with her growing reputation as one of the military's most effective snipers. The secure briefing room at Bagram Airfield hummed with quiet conversation as senior military officials gathered for what had been described as a special recognition ceremony. Sarah Martinez sat uncomfortably in her dress blue uniform, still adjusting to the attention her combat record had generated among the highest levels of military leadership. The invitation had come directly from the office of General Stanley Morrison, the commanding general for all special operations forces in Afghanistan. Sarah's confirmed kill count had reached 3,247 following her most recent mission, a number that placed her among the most lethal snipers in military history. The precision of her shooting and the extreme ranges at which she operated had become legendary throughout the special operations community. Stories of her impossible shots were told and retold in forward operating bases across Afghanistan, each account adding to her growing reputation. The ceremony was attended by representatives from multiple military branches, including Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, and Marine Corps Force reconnaissance units that had benefited from Sarah's sniper support during various operations. Her reputation had transcended traditional service rivalries, earning respect from warriors across the spectrum of special operations forces. Commander Marcus Thompson, the SEAL team leader from her most recent mission, had specifically requested permission to attend the ceremony. His after-action reports had consistently highlighted Sarah's exceptional performance and professionalism during joint operations. The naval officer understood better than most the critical importance of precision sniper support during high-risk missions behind enemy lines. Major General Hayes took the podium to address the assembled group, his remarks focusing on the unique challenges of modern warfare and the individual excellence that made victory possible. Sarah's achievements represented the highest standards of military professionalism, combining technical expertise with the moral courage required to engage the enemy at extreme distances while minimizing risk to friendly forces. The official citation accompanying Sarah's decoration detailed her combat record over 18 months of continuous deployment. The document listed dozens of successful missions, hundreds of confirmed kills, and countless instances where her precision fire support had prevented American casualties. The statistical summary of her service read like something from military history rather than contemporary combat operations. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah found herself approached by a figure whose presence immediately commanded attention throughout the room. Navy SEAL Commander William Jackson, call sign Razor, was a legend within the special operations community. His reputation for leading the most dangerous and classified missions made him a figure of near mythical status among operators who had worked with his unit. Commander Jackson's approach was deliberate and measured, his bearing reflecting years of experience in the most challenging combat environments imaginable. The decorations on his uniform told the story of multiple deployments and numerous high-risk operations, while his calm demeanor suggested someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions under extreme pressure. When he stopped directly in front of Sarah, the conversation around them gradually quieted. Marine Corporal Martinez, Commander Jackson's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command, but his tone remained respectful. "I've been following your service record with considerable interest. Your accomplishments in support of special operations forces have not gone unnoticed at the highest levels of our community." Sarah straightened to attention, uncertain about the protocol for responding to such a senior officer from another service branch. Her experience with Navy personnel had been limited to joint operations where rank and service distinctions mattered less than mission accomplishment. The commander's presence suggested something beyond routine recognition or congratulations. "Your confirmed kill count of 3,250 places you in very exclusive company," Commander Jackson continued, his eyes studying Sarah with the analytical gaze of someone evaluating potential. "More importantly, the precision and consistency of your performance under extreme conditions suggests capabilities that could prove valuable in missions beyond conventional sniper support." The number cited by Commander Jackson was higher than Sarah's own count, suggesting access to classified after-action reports and intelligence assessments that provided a more complete picture of her combat effectiveness. The precision of his information indicated that her service record had been reviewed at levels of command far above her current assignment. Danny Kim, who had been standing nearby during the ceremony, noticed the intensity of the conversation between Sarah and the SEAL commander. As Sarah's spotter and closest friend in the unit, he understood the significance of such high-level attention. The partnership they had developed over months of combat operations had created a bond that transcended normal military relationships. "The nature of the missions I'm discussing would require extended deployment periods in environments where traditional support structures are unavailable," Commander Jackson explained, his voice lowering to ensure privacy. "The candidates selected for such assignments must demonstrate not only exceptional marksmanship skills but also the psychological resilience to operate independently for extended periods." Sarah listened carefully to the commander's words, recognizing the careful phrasing that suggested classified operations beyond her current security clearance. The special operations community was known for recruiting individuals with unique skills for missions that conventional forces could not attempt. Her growing reputation had apparently attracted attention from units that operated at the highest levels of military capability. The commander's evaluation of Sarah's psychological profile reflected extensive analysis of her service record and performance under stress. Military psychologists had studied her ability to process the moral weight of her actions while maintaining operational effectiveness, a balance that few snipers achieved over extended combat deployments. Her demonstrated stability under extreme pressure made her a candidate for missions that would test those qualities even further. Your technical expertise with long-range precision shooting is well documented, Commander Jackson continued, but equally impressive is your ability to adapt to changing tactical situations while maintaining accuracy at extreme distances. These qualities would be essential for the type of operations my unit conducts. The compliment carried weight coming from someone of Commander Jackson's reputation and experience. His unit was known to recruit only the most exceptional operators from across all military services, with selection standards that eliminated the vast majority of candidates. The fact that he was personally discussing potential opportunities suggested that Sarah's capabilities had impressed reviewers at the highest levels. Sarah's mind raced as she considered the implications of the commander's words. Her current assignment with conventional Marine forces had been challenging and rewarding, but the opportunity to serve with elite special operations units represented a chance to contribute at an entirely different level. The missions he described would likely involve greater risks but also greater potential impact on the war effort. The selection process for my unit is extensive and demanding, Commander Jackson explained. Physical requirements, psychological evaluation, and technical assessments would test every aspect of your capabilities. Many qualified candidates do not successfully complete the program, despite impressive service records in conventional units. The warning was stated matter-of-factly, without any attempt to discourage or intimidate. Commander Jackson understood that elite operators needed to make informed decisions about career paths that would define their military service. The commitment required for special operations assignments went far beyond normal duty obligations, affecting every aspect of a service member's life. Danny Kim had moved close enough to overhear portions of the conversation, his concern evident as he realized that Sarah might be recruited away from their current unit. Their partnership had been tested and refined through countless missions, creating a level of professional trust that would be difficult to replicate with another spotter. The possibility of separation was something neither Marine had previously considered. The time frame for making such a decision would obviously allow for consultation with your current command structure, Commander Jackson added, recognizing the complexity of transferring high-performing personnel between units during active combat deployments. Your current contributions are too valuable to interrupt without proper planning and coordination. Sarah appreciated the commander's acknowledgement of her responsibilities to her current unit and fellow Marines. The relationships she had built over months of deployment were not something she would abandon lightly. Her decision would need to consider the impact on Marines who had come to depend on her skills and support during dangerous operations. The conversation was interrupted by the approach of Major General Hayes, who sought to introduce Commander Jackson to other attendees at the ceremony. The brief exchange allowed Sarah to process what had been discussed while observing the interaction between two senior officers who clearly shared mutual respect despite their different service backgrounds. "Think about what we've discussed," Commander Jackson said quietly before moving away. "Your country could benefit significantly from your unique capabilities, but the decision must ultimately be yours. I'll be available if you have questions or wish to explore the possibilities further." The remainder of the ceremony passed in a blur as Sarah contemplated the unexpected opportunity that had been presented. Her achievements as a sniper had opened doors to possibilities she had never imagined when first joining the Marine Corps. The decision before her would shape not only her military career but her entire future as a professional warrior. Danny Kim approached as the formal proceedings concluded, his expression reflecting concern and curiosity about the extended conversation with Commander Jackson. Their friendship had developed through shared danger and mutual dependence, creating bonds that transcended normal military relationships. The possibility of Sarah's transfer to Special Operations Forces represented a significant change to both their futures. That looked like a serious conversation, Danny observed, his tone carefully neutral despite obvious concerns.
Commander Jackson isn't known for casual recruitment discussions.
His unit has a reputation for handling missions that nobody else wants to attempt.
Sarah nodded thoughtfully, still processing the implications of what had been discussed.
The opportunity represented a chance to serve at the highest levels of military capability, but it would also mean leaving behind relationships and responsibilities that had defined her deployment experience. The decision would require careful consideration of personal goals and professional obligations. The ceremony's conclusion marked the beginning of what Sarah knew would be an intense period of reflection and decision-making. The path forward was no longer clearly defined, with multiple options each carrying distinct advantages and challenges. Her confirmed kill count of 3,250 had opened doors she had never expected, but the choice of which door to walk through remained hers alone. As she prepared to return to her forward operating base, Sarah reflected on how far she had traveled from the small-town girl who learned to shoot in her grandfather's backyard. The precision instrument that had become an extension of her will had carried her to the attention of the military's most elite units, but the decision about how to use those skills in the future remained the most challenging target she would ever face.